everyone, and welcome to another episode of the SempreMilan podcast. I'm your host, Ollie Fisher, or I guess Santa Ollie for today, and I'm joined, as always, by Anthony Torgrud.
Ho, ho, ho. Merry Christmas. Yeah, glad to be back. Well, I don't know about that. It's Christmas Eve. It's 8 a.m., but we're doing this because I fucked up yesterday and just forgot to show up. So, the reliable makes mistakes, and I left the house right at the time we were about to start recording. I left. So, oops. Here we
It's
are.
all good. It's all good.
And now
You,
Madison's not
you're,
on, so
yeah, Maddie. Maddie's got to look after the kiddo, so it's fair enough, I guess. But yeah, I did put a tweet out saying that we were going to record yesterday, and we're actually doing this on Christmas Eve, so the 24th. Apologies that it's going to be 24 hours late, but hope you appreciate the festive get up and we have at least got a win to talk about. But before we dive into that boring game, I want to say thank you. I was going to say it'll be for the last time this year, but I don't. We'll probably record
I
before
think
the
there's
end
one
of the
more.
year.
Yeah.
Yeah, there'll be one more. But anyway, thank you to our Substack founding members, Des Winter McGlynn, Tito Mac, Moritz Pullman, Joey Gawler, Kemin, Mats, Luke Villano, Raul Escobar, Jack Carlo Fassi, Nasser, Merlin Finker, Derek Favretto, Heavenly 13, Mike Schulz, JT Physio, Tarek, Marco Vilea, and Roberto Racinos. Have a wonderful Christmas, guys, or a wonderful festive period. Hope that Santa brings you what you want, which was, of course, 3 points against Verona, so that's a tick. But yeah, have a fantastic time with friends, family, close ones, and all that. Some things are bigger than football, and thankfully, in about 2 hours, I'm going to be going to the pub to get shit-faced. So that's what it's
On
all
Christmas
about,
Eve,
right?
really? You do? Damn, that's
Yeah,
cool.
no, well, we don't really. We just go out a bit earlier doors and use it as an excuse to see family and
Yeah.
stuff. Do you guys not? Is Christmas Eve not a big like drinking thing?
Not really. Like you wouldn't do it at a bar. You would just like have drinks at the house.
Mhm,
I'm not a big proponent of it because typically what you do is like a spiked eggnog or some nasty shit, and
mhm.
just give me a beer. That's
Yeah,
all I
yeah, yeah,
need. But
yeah.
yeah, my Christmas Eve, I'm gonna spend preparing because I have to go to her parents tomorrow. So we're flying Christmas Day, thank God, because apparently American Airlines grounded all
Just
flights
seen
today.
that. Yeah.
That's who we're flying on. So tomorrow's gonna be a shit show. Glad we opened all of our gifts. So one thing I didn't get that I wanted was MJ back as a founding member. Maybe next year,
Yeah. Mm,
But other than
get me
that,
for the
yeah, we
new
did
year.
all of our presents yesterday because I figured today we got to clean and stuff, get ready for the dog sitter,
Mm.
and then get ready for the flight, and just made sense to have all of it done the night before. And yeah, so here we are, but happy to be here.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, we did our presents back up in London, so we didn't have to bring them back
Mm.
up north, and that means I don't have with me what was the probably one of the best Milan-related presents I've ever got. It was the gold 2005 third shirt
Mm.
with the Scudetto patch and Shevchenko on the back. I did post some pictures of it on Twitter, but yeah, I'd have been rocking that otherwise. But it's going to have to be the Shevchenko Christmas jumper instead. So yeah, holidays are here. Friday wasn't very much festive fun, was it? I have a disclaimer to put forward here. I didn't watch the game live because I was in Cambridge watching Huddersfield live. And for those of you who say you got your priorities wrong, Huddersfield won 4-0. So I'm glad that I saw a more entertaining game. And yeah, I was getting the messages through from you boys leading up to the goal and then after the goal, and I was getting the vibe that it wasn't a particularly entertaining spectacle. The stats back that up. There was a high volume of shots, but what did you say the combined XG was? Like 1.4 or something?
Yeah, 1.49 combined XG, 24 combined shots between the two teams. So that tells you how bad those shots were.
Yep.
Um, this was not a pretty game, just to paint a picture, and I'm sure everyone knows, but let me just remind you how not pretty this game was. Our lineup saw Terracciano in midfield.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, it had Royale, so there's that. Alex Jimenez got another start. Um, that seems to be the main oddity of it is Terracciano in midfield, but wait, there's more. Rafa Leao comes off hurt inside 30 minutes, and you think, okay, who's going to come on? Well, I remind you, Christian Pulisic is out injured. Okafor is out injured. So on
RLC.
comes, oh yeah, RLC is out injured. So
Thankfully.
on comes Teo Hernandez. And where does he play? You think, oh, wow, Teo's kind of attacking. That might be fun. Throw him as wing. Nope. He goes to fullback. Jimenez, move on up. Your third in 2 games. So he's up there. So we now have 4 fullbacks on the pitch. Fast forward to the 70th minute. Chukwueze comes off. And reminder, all the wingers are out. All the wingers. So who comes on for Chukwueze? Davide Calabria.
Brilliant.
So we have 5 fullbacks playing at one time. 1 in midfield, 2 on the wings.
And
And then
people said it was a weak position for us.
apparently. And then to make it worse, we're only up 1-0 against Hellas Verona, a horrible club who, as the XG has shown us, is not doing anything. Well, what does Fonseca decide to do? Let's defend this lead. Let's bring on Tamori. Without even going
That was
into
like
the goal or any moments, that tells you everything you need to know about how this game went.
6 at the back, just maybe more than that, to be honest, with all the fullbacks and then 3 centre backs on the field at the same time. Wow. Yeah, talk about committing to defending a lead. I suppose we did it. Like it's another clean sheet. And you know, at full time there is a feeling of relief when you get a result like that, right? I mean, we needed to win, and Verona are often a strangely difficult opponent for us. You know, there's been times where we've gone there and not done very well. Although recently we've got some big wins there, but it did just feel like a kind of game where you've got to win by any means. But the problem is that, like, you know, Fonseca keeps preaching about having patience and even saying that he sees some of his ideas being transmitted on the field. You go to a team that hasn't drawn a game all season, so they're that up and down that they're either winning big or losing big, and you know you play a stinker of a game like that where nothing really clicks. I get it. We had 10 absent players for the game. I challenge anybody to, you know, play their best game of the season under those conditions, but it is a little bit worrying when it fails to click in any way, shape, or form. And it did take a moment of, I mean, obviously there was some chemistry, some cohesion, and some teamwork in the goal that we did score, but it did take like one moment of quality to break them open, and that's the only thing that we generated in terms of that in the entire game. You know,
Yeah, and
you'd hope
I
for
want to go
more.
back to the injuries because as funny as it is to say like, oh, we brought on 3 more defenders for this game. Those were the only 3 senior players on the bench.
Yeah,
Everyone else was called up from the Primavera or the Futuro. It was like Liberali, Zaruli, Camarda, I think Noah Revere or
yeah,
Rive, yeah, whatever his name is.
yeah,
Like, let me see who
Rivera.
else was on there. Oh, and Sportiello and Pavlovic. So there were 2 more, but yeah, I mean the fact that Verona had an additional 6 players on their bench compared to ours tells you just how drastic our injury crisis currently is, and it all happened like in the last week. It just
Mm.
everything came to a head.
It-
Like it was like we were resting on one injury all season. You know, Benacer being long term, and
yeah,
then all of a sudden it was
missing
like, "Yo,
one
everyone's
starter
out
max.
conveniently on Christmas." Not
Yeah,
that they're
yeah, they
doing
just
it
don't fancy
intentionally,
it.
you know, but it's just like, oh, if there ever was a time to be injured, it's definitely the holidays, right? So
Yeah, and there's always a brilliant list that goes round of Twitter of all the players who are 1 yellow card away from suspension in the Premier League, and if they got it, then it means they'd missed the Boxing Day game, which obviously everyone wants to do. So it's like
yep.
lumping on all these players to get booked, and usually a few of them come in and you're like, I
Oh
know
yeah.
what you're doing. Yeah, very smart. But yeah, and it's funny because back on November 29th. Fonseca got asked about the improved injury record in a press conference, and he did say like, "Oh, I don't want to jinx it or anything, but things are looking very, very good." And from there on, it's been an abattoir.
Head.
Yeah, people dropping left, right, and centre. Leao being the latest one, he's out for the Roma game at least. There's a bit of hope that he may get back for the Super Cup, but you know, seems touch and go on that front. The Roma game, which we're going to come on to, there'll be some players coming back for that, which is good. So I think providing that the players are not getting injured at home over Christmas, then that might be the worst of the storm that we have to weather, and it
Yeah.
gets a bit better from the next game onwards, hopefully. But yeah, huge amount of injuries. It did not help the flow of the performance at all. The game in general didn't flow. From what I gather, I haven't seen it all, but I've seen extended highlights. But it just seemed like a bit of a snooze fest. They had the first big chance. Chukwueze coughed the ball up, which was really bad. I'm kind of not surprised that he got taken off. I don't even think it was just like an energy thing. I think it's like, oh my god, this guy could cost us. I thought Gabia was going to come off at one point because he goes down like he sprained his ankle. Verona person on the bench got a red card late on for completely throwing a fit. That was quite fun. But yeah, nothing, a non-event game really. It reminded me in many ways of the 1-0 win against Monza away a few weeks ago. And funnily enough, that was also a Reinders winner. And we should praise the goal at this point. It was a gorgeous through ball. I've seen some idiots on Twitter trying to say, that's simple pass. Anybody who's coached football or anybody who watches football knows that that's an easy pass to make. You see one angle of it behind the goal. The pass isn't on. He threads it through a lane that, in my eyes, isn't
Through
there.
two
But
lanes. Like, yeah,
perfect. And
he crosses every line. Like, he makes it look easy. And it's the people who have never been on a field who think it's easy because it looked easy on TV with multi-million-dollar professionals performing it. Like, that was like a 40-yard pass through every line of Verona's entire team to get to Reinders on, as he's perfectly onside as well. Like,
yeah, good run.
it really was the best possible pass you could make. Obviously, it led to the goal, but yeah, that was an incredible pass. Going back to the lack of events beside that, you go to an official highlight video after a match, usually 8 minutes for a bad game, 12 minutes on average, about 15 for an eventful one. The first 30 seconds is usually just them walking out, showing the lineup, kickoff. And the last 10 seconds is the final whistle, So take out 40 seconds of every highlight reel. That's how much action you get. This one was 2 minutes and 20 seconds. Take
That
out the 40
sounds, yeah.
seconds, you have less than a minute of action.
That sounds about right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I'm struggling. I don't have anything else to add. We've kind of gone
That's
over everything there. The lineup irregularities, the
Yeah. There
injury, nice
was
goal.
2 yellow cards in the first half. That's it.
See, they
I
didn't
mean,
even
I
kick the
should say the
shit out of each
refereeing
other.
was pretty awful because it was a pretty physical game.
Physical, yeah.
And
Yeah. Stop,
and
start.
you
That
got
didn't
to do
help.
something. I mean, yeah, the start stop obviously hurts everything, but only having the 2 cards, and they were early on, they were both in the first half, that it kind of, you got to set the tone. You got to take control of the game as the referee, and I don't think that was on his agenda. I get let him play to an extent, but he was also calling every foul. He just wasn't giving a punishment for it, so there was no incentive
Yeah.
to not continue fouling people.
Yeah. Yeah. That's it. I mean, not a particularly, fireworks
30
laid
fouls in that game.
30 fouls. Wow. Yeah. That is the kind of game that's very, very stop start. Yeah, it wasn't a game full of fireworks to see us off into Christmas, but I suppose it's 3 points. We've gained on Fiorentina, who got beat by Udinese last night. Then you've got we're no close to those top 3 teams who all won again. Juventus won against Monza, so it's still a pretty bleak picture. To be 8th going into Christmas, not nice. But I'm just, my enthusiasm's dwindling a bit for the league season in general. And then it's like, say we beat Roma on the 29th, then it's like, all right, let's get some momentum going in the league, but we can't because we're flying out to the Middle East for the Super Cup, and it's just all a bit like, I can't see us getting a run going because the fixtures don't allow it almost. But
and even if we were to beat Roma, or if we do beat Roma, it's not that big of a deal because they're 10 points behind us. Like, it's not points against their rival. Like, we're having a really bad season. They're having a god awful season. So it's like Roma is where the Fiorentina and the Bologna teams should be, But those teams are above us instead. So I do think some teams are going to start dropping off. Fiorentina, Bologna, even Lazio is not looking too hot anymore. They just got smoked by Inter 6-1. Obviously, they won their game this weekend, but I don't know. It's still it's. I think we're gonna bounce back, and we're going to be in European positions by the end of the season. I just don't know which ones, and I wouldn't be
Yeah,
surprised if it's the good ones, but we'll see.
rather do a Napoli and just miss it all. Just focus
It's
entirely on
working
the
out for
league.
them.
Yeah, it is. It really is. But yeah, it is grim when you look at the table at the moment. It's it's when we drop points, it seems to make everything so much worse. And then when we win, it doesn't seem to get us anywhere at all. And
Yeah.
that speaks of the consistency of the teams above us. So fair enough, especially those top three. It's them three for the title now, into Napoli or Atalanta for me.
Hmm.
But yeah, Juve are kind of the same. They're dropping points the
Yeah.
same weekends as us, and then winning the same weekend. So we're not really getting there with them. So it's frustrating. But anyway, New Year, maybe there's a turning point. Oh, obviously the Roma game too. Man of the match for this one for me, between Reinders or Fofana, I think, because those two combined for the goal. I'll probably go with Fofana.
Yeah, I think that's the right call. I mean, there's only two options, so you picked one, I'll pick the other. I'll give it to Reinders.
Yeah, and flop. I'm gonna go Chukwueze for the flop because I think he's had opportunities in the past few games with all the absences to really stake a claim. It's like, if you could say one thing about him, it's that he wasn't getting regular starts last season into this season because of how good Pulisic has been. And yet, when he gets his moment, he just hasn't grabbed it at all. And he had that giveaway around about 30 minutes in that could have led to a much more dangerous
Yeah.
chance at the end there. And yeah, getting hauled off in the second half when we've got no forwards to chuck on in his place is a damning indictment of how his night went. So I'd probably say him.
I'm going to give it to Tammy Abraham. Just going
Mm,
through his stats here: 0 chances created, 1 shot, 2 touches in the other box, 0 successful dribbles, 0 accurate crosses, 0 tackles, one, and 2 of 7 duels won. So he was pretty non-existent.
yeah. No, I think that's a fair shout too. The attack has kind of jammed. You consider we haven't scored in 3 of our last 4 home league games. We're scraped past that game, scraped through that game against a team that has been shipping a lot of goals this season. Um, get it? There's injuries. Hopefully, it all clicks when we get some of those key players back and back in the team. But yeah, for the time being, it's been worrying because the depth players have been unable to step up and make what should be easy games look easier. Although I did predict a draw, and we ended up getting a win, so a positive surprise. Let's move on and do Roma. What a basket case of a club at the moment,
Ye-
man. They're on their 3rd head coach this season, which is crazy. They obviously gave De Rossi
They
an
are. Wow.
extension towards the end of last season. They gave him a 3-year deal because he'd done well in a caretaker position. But I remember speaking to Ewan about it, and he was like, as well as he's doing, I wouldn't give him a long deal because we've all seen how this ends. There
Yeah.
were remarkable parallels to us and Gattuso. Comes in, lights a fire under the boys, go on a bit of a late season charge, but then really that's where it should respectfully end. You've done
Hmm.
your job, thank you very much, but now instead, long-term deal gets chucked out, and then you have to sack him partway into the next season, and you mistreat a club legend, and it looks really bad optically, like around Europe even. So yeah, De Rossi got canned fairly early in the season. They brought in Ivan Juric, who left Torino at the end of last season. I thought he might steady the ship a little bit and make them quite boring, but quite effective, because I still don't think they have a terrible squad, Roma, to be honest. They should be far better than where they're at the moment. Never, ever looked good under
No.
Juric at all. Really, really did not work. And then they binned him off for obviously their golden child, Claudio Ranieri, who's back there now, who I love, to be honest. And
Hmm.
I wouldn't have done it if I was him, but it shows how much love he has for Roma that he's gone back there in
Yeah.
this situation. I'll just do my best. And um, they've been a little bit better. They're still very up and down, but they demolished someone the other day. Was it Empoli? They beat someone like 5-0 in the last round. In fact,
They
let me just get
beat
up.
Parma 5-0, and before that,
Yeah.
Sampdoria 4-1 in the cup.
But then they lost away at Como in the league before that.
Yeah.
Braga in the Europa League, fair enough, but they beat Lecce 4-1, lost to Atalanta 2-0. Drew at drew at Tottenham 2-2, and I watched that game, and they were the better team. They actually looked like they could have won against
Hmm.
Spurs. But before that, lost to Napoli. Before that, lost to Bologna. Before that, lost away at Verona in the league. They're just, they're not
Yeah.
doing well. I've seen some of their fans on Twitter talking about like, mass clear out, going at the ownership because they now have a new shiny new toy. They've bought Everton, so
Hmm.
have they got like divided attention now? I mean, they're, as you said, they're 7 points behind us.
If
So
we
we go
win, it'll
10
be
ahead
10.
with a win. Yeah.
There.
So I mean, but oh my god, they've lost 8 out of 17. That's bad
Yeah,
for a team of that like.
it
So
is bad.
I
But if
I,
you
I
look
could
at, go ahead.
I was just going to say I could read you the team here, and you can go two ways with it. You can say, well, yeah, that is a bad team because look at how they are in the league. But I think if you look at the likes of Svilar in goal, whatever, Mancini, Hummels, and Dicker as a back three, I think we've been linked with all three of them at some point.
Yeah.
Salamaca's wing back, who was involved in 3 of the goals against Parma, actually. Tasende at left wing back, I don't know much about. Manu Kone, who we wanted. Paredes, Dybala, El Shaarawy, Dovbyk. Like, that ain't a team that should be 13th, you know?
No, that's a team of players that either are Milan players, former Milan players, or linked to
Hmm.
Milan players. There's not a single player on that team
Yeah.
besides their goalkeeper who wasn't in one way or shape associated with Milan in the
Mm.
last 3-4 years, or maybe longer with El Shaarawy. But you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And since Ranieri's taken over, they've turned it around. 4 of their last 5. Granted, yes, Braga and Sampdoria, uh, Parma, Lecce. They're not exactly the good teams, and they lost to Como in there as well. But they lost to the teams they're supposed to. Atalanta and Napoli, even Bologna is a top team right now. Um,
Mm.
so when Ranieri came in, which was I think after Bologna, it was Napoli was his first match.
Yeah, that's right.
Um,
Yeah, I think. Yeah.
yeah, so he's done a decent job, and the thing that scares me is our head-to-head record with them. Last season was odd because we did the league double over them, and then played them in the semifinal of the Europa League, lost both legs of it, and then did that
Quarters,
weird
wasn't it?
Australia
But
thing, or
anyway, yeah.
maybe it was quarters. I can't remember. In
Quarters,
the
I
Europa
think.
League,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
but then we did that odd Australia
God,
friendly
yeah.
at the end of the season and got
Yeah.
demolished 5-2. Granted, it was Bonera's caretaker match and it didn't matter. Most
Maybe
players were
that was
already
the
on
sign, by
vacation.
the way, that he shouldn't be the Futuro manager.
Yeah. And now he's asking
Yeah.
for reinforcements. It's like, bro, this is a Series C team. We're not trying to win this league. We're trying to develop our players. Like,
Yeah.
what do you mean you're asking for
I,
experience, guys? What? The
ideally,
whole
shouldn't be
point. It's
second
called
bottom, but
Futuro. Yeah.
yeah,
It's not
exactly.
called Pasto. Like, what are you doing? You don't want old players. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
I mean, look, that's a whole separate issue, but it is kind of grim that they're second bottom. One thing I will say in Bonera's defense is that we have like by far the lowest average age of anyone in that league for obvious reasons. It's the Futuro. We're even only allowed a certain amount of over 22 players, so fair enough. But the best of that young bunch are gone every week. So
Yep.
uh, but that was always the vision, so you kind of know what you're getting into. But at the
Mhm.
same time, when you're trying to select a team and you don't know until a day or two before that you're losing 5 of your players because they're going to the senior team, I think it's a hard job, and I think anybody would struggle in that. But yeah, they've got to clamber out of that mess that they're in. But yeah, Roma. Yeah, we've. I feel like we went through a phase in like 2015 when Roma were sort of setting third in Serie A,
Yeah, yeah.
where they beat us home and away. But
Mhm.
then it flipped. When we came good, started challenging for the Scudetto, we started winning home and away. And as you say, did they double over them last season? Is that right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So excluding because we played them the 5 times or whatever. So you
Mm.
get rid of the what am I trying to say here? Get rid of the
Get
friendly
rid of
thing
the
from
yeah
Australia, get rid of the Europa
Europa
League.
League. Yeah.
Then our last time losing to them in the league was 2019,
Mm.
pre-Zlatan.
Mm. Hmm. Yeah, I remember that game as well. I mean, we've had those 2 home games as well that were 2-2 draws. One of them being the late collapse in that
Yeah.
January, and
Mhm.
then another one as well that I think was a late.
Ironically, Abraham was the one who scored the
Yeah,
equalizer in the 93rd.
yeah, yeah. And Kalulu, I believe, scored a goal in that. I'm going to say that was he got the opening goal for us, and now he's obviously at
Yes, he did.
Juventus.
And Pobega got the other one.
Salamakas will have played for us. Yeah, yeah, mad. So yeah, let's just wait. I mean, look, on paper, this remains a game that we should win, even if you take out all the external context of the fact that our club is on fire.
Mm.
Everybody hates everybody. We aren't playing very well, and we're missing quite a few important players. Because you take all that and magnify it, and then you've got
Yeah.
Roma. So, like, it's just going to be. It could potentially be a 0-0 or a 3-3 or something a bit crazy. They could even beat us. Like, would I be surprised if you came from the future and told me that we'd lost this one 2-0 or something? No, not really. I'd be frustrated and angry, and I'd say forget about Europe. But it's just the way the season's been. The highs have been high, but the lows have been lower than a lot of the stuff that we've been used to in previous seasons. That being said, I do think we'll win. I think we'll find a
Um,
way.
I the head and the heart say different things here. You know,
Mm.
I'm not confident just knowing the missing players. I mean, Pulisic rumored to maybe be back for this. I don't know if
Hmm.
he'll get the full 90 or if he'd even start or come on late. Maybe. That would be obviously a huge game changer. You look at when our dip and attack started; it was when he went out. So
Mm.
definitely keeping that in mind. If he's back, obviously our chances improve drastically. I also think that at this point of the season where we're at in the table, you have to predict a win for every game because if they're not trying to win every game, if we're not winning every game or at least 90% of the games, then what are we doing? You know, at this
Yeah,
point, like it's win or we don't have any other option.
yeah,
And
yeah.
obviously, when your back's against the wall, that doesn't mean you're going to pull it off. But this team has a history of somehow finding a way. Anytime the manager is like, the result of this game determines your future, the team pulls it
Mm.
out. Even this shitter against
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Verona, like a part of me was like, I just don't just get rid of him. Let it happen.
Mm.
But they still pulled it out, and it was an awful game. But that's what this team does. They pull it out, and you saw it with Pioli for 5 years. Anytime he was one game away from being sacked, big win. So
Mm.
who knows, man? I mean, it's possible. It's possible, and look. This isn't the game that's. It's not David versus Goliath. This isn't Real Madrid who we did beat this season. This isn't Inter who we
Yeah.
did beat this season. It's it's not Atalanta who we couldn't beat this season or Napoli. It's Roma. So yeah, I'll give it a win, and it's not based on any analytical anything, just other than a gut feeling and a hope. Um,
Mm.
Christmas wishes. So
Yeah, yeah.
I'll say another 1-0 or a 2-1. It's going to be a close, narrow game.
I see El Shaarawy scoring against us. But yeah, I'll go 2-1. I think both teams will score. Um, Yeah, I quite like the explanation of the battle between head and heart there because it's been a lot like that this season, because I think we got used to head and heart saying the same thing under Pioli
Mhm.
because even when it was bad, we tended to be where we tended to be positioned above the minimum objective, if that makes sense. So like we were
Yeah,
always in and around the top four. It got a little bit hairy in one season, but we finished second last season, for example. And it's like, yeah, I believe that you go into any game barring the derby and think, yeah, we can do this. Whereas
yeah,
now it's like, well, yeah, my heart says that I think we can win this game, but my head says we are very capable of fucking up anything at the
yeah.
moment. And that's it. Let's wait and see. Let's hope for 3 points. Quick talking points then. You read the Cardinale interview?
Wish I hadn't.
Yeah.
Wish I
Interesting.
didn't,
Interesting.
but yeah. Tone deaf. Horrible time. I know that the interview was recorded well before the 125 ceremony and all the protests and those results. Um, but maybe read the room and don't put that out. Maybe say, hey,
Mm,
let's wait a week. Let's wait a couple weeks.
yeah.
Worst possible timing for a horrible interview. If we're top of the league, then okay, talk about how you don't care about results and how you want commercial success. But we're struggling, and that's all fans give a fuck about. They don't care about revenue. They don't care about sustainability of the club. They don't make any money from. We're fans. We spend money on this club. We buy jerseys. We buy hats. We spend $200 on the anniversary kit that I'll never wear. That I probably won't even open because I like the bag more than the actual shirt. Um, that's what fans do. So when you coming back talking about, we sell good players because it's good money. You could turn a profit, and don't really care about winning every year. That's not important to me. I want to be worth $5 billion. It's like, bro, I don't care. Financially, I care about paying my bills at the end of the month, and I care about watching my team win because that's happiness. That's where you find joy.
Mm.
And going into the project, I really thought we were finding that median where it made sense because I do believe that commercial success leads to on-field success, but there's a fine margin there where you go too far in one and the other plummets.
Yeah,
And he's right about Inter won the Scudetto and now they went bankrupt. It's true that happened, and that will lead to bad things for them in the future if they continue that path. And they've been doing it for a few years, and it hasn't happened yet, but it's going to eventually, right? We know that. That's what happens when you have bad finances. But on the flip side, just because you're making money every year doesn't mean you're going to win anything. And as fans, no one wants to be without hope every season. You don't want to go into the season and go, yeah, I'd love a mid-table finish, unless you're newly promoted, and like that's the ethos is avoid relegation. Like let's get
yeah,
stabilized in the league. Let's build towards it. But even fans of teams that are newly promoted and that's their current goal, what's their long-term goal? To win a title.
gotta be.
You
Yeah,
think Leicester
yeah.
City fans ever said like, "I'd just be happy to stay in the Premier League forever"? No, they wanted to fucking win it, and they did. Like,
Mm.
yeah, they're down again. That happens. But
Slightly, yeah,
like,
maybe slightly
it,
different miracle there, but yeah, I get
yeah,
your point.
you
You've
get
got
what I'm
to,
saying. So
as fans, if we're not ambitious, who can be? And
exactly.
that should be reflected
And
in the
even if
ownership
the
and in the
ownership's
management. And
not, they should tell you they are.
well,
They
this
should
is
give the
one of the
fans hope.
things. I agree, and this is one of the things that I found most alarming about it all is that the only one who's told us the truth about that is Paolo Scaroni.
Hmm.
He's the only one who has openly come out and said top four is our objective season on season. You've got Fonseca saying Scudetto's the aim. Ferlani saying we think we've built a team capable of winning the Scudetto. I don't think Cardinale has ever spoken about like the specific targets for this season. Also, one thing to mention, I know you kind of said it, but these interviews were done at the end of last season, so it's literally been like 6 months. But again, that we don't care about the chronology of it all. The words still hold up even
Hmm.
now, so we're gonna take it line by line. And yeah, Scaroni's the only one who's basically said what has been confirmed both in actions and in, I guess, a little bit in this interview, in that the minimum objective is the Champions League, and they will always be happy as long as that's what we achieve. Now, we're not currently on course to do it this season, so it'd be interesting to know how much the panic meter's going in the offices of Casa Milan at the moment, and if Cardinale is stressing a little bit about that, more so than he says there because it was done months ago. But whenever you're going into a season and you're not thinking about winning, you're not thinking about the 125th anniversary season having a trophy to show for it. That's embarrassing. That's
Hmm.
embarrassing. He made no mention of the fact that he inherited a very good platform either. He inherited a team that had won the league. So the idea
Yeah.
that he was going to accept making it worse on the field, rather than saying, we took this team over and they just won a league title. We want to
Hmm.
continue that winning league titles. It's like we're now going to lower the objective again. Very, very odd. It's all
Yeah.
very odd to me.
And
And
it's
this isn't.
interesting when you think of commercial financial success is that the easiest way to build a fan base, build more revenue, just keep winning. Everyone wants to bandwagon, right? Like you see the popular teams are Real Madrid, Barcelona, Manchester United. Obviously, they don't win anything anymore. Manchester City, but like you see the teams that you see the most jerseys on the street, at least here in the States, where everyone's a bandwagon
Yeah,
fan because there's no local. It's not the team that's finishing fourth every year.
no,
It's the teams that are constantly winning. So yeah, it spends a little more, and you could have commercial success without on-field success, but you could have both. You know, a piece of
mm,
fans, and you make money. Yeah, if you're overspending, then sure you're going to lose money like Inter did. But there's ways to do both successfully, and it seems like the objective is not that. It's just to do the one that ultimately aligns his pockets because he owes a lot of money in a loan that he just refinanced. So he still owes it, by the
yeah.
way.
Yeah, it's been extended to 2028 for those of you who haven't read. the interest will continue. So it'll be quite a large amount by the time that comes around. Be interesting to know what the play is with that, whether it is solely buying time to find new investors or whether it's a stadium related thing. So, we think we're going to be well on with the stadium by then. So we'll look into a full sale at that point and you'll get your money back and some. Only the people inside the walls and, who were privy to the phone conversations will know what they're actually thinking with that. But it it wasn't particularly well timed because fans have so much skepticism about the ambition and the vision of the club moving forward that signing up for another 3 years of it wasn't what anyone really wanted. I think it would be fair to say. There are those who, and I've seen it on our comment section on the site, who are arguing in favour of stability and who are actually quite defensive of some of the things that he says. And there are parts of it that I agree with. For example, he had a go at the Italian media. He Cardinale, this is. So he clearly distrusts the Italian media, and I think that's why we never see him do any interviews with La Gazzetta or even with Sky. He's fed up of stuff that gets made up. That's fair enough. I quite like that he called them out on that. And he does not like Italian bureaucracy. He even says something about how he had other owners of American sports franchises ringing him when he bought the club saying, "You're crazy for doing this. You're not going to change anything in Italy. European soccer is completely different to American sports in the sense that you don't do it to make money. You lose money by..." And they were right. You know what? They were right.
Yeah.
He was kind of naive to think that he could change the entire ecosystem of one particular thing. And I'm not even talking about European football. I'm talking about Milan and the market that they exist in. To think that he could be the guy with, riding on horseback coming in, like, I'm going to change everything and make this into some kind of futuristic metropolis where everybody wants to come, not going to happen. Like, it just wasn't going to happen. I do commend his efforts and to some extent his stubbornness in trying to be like, no, I will change things here. I want us to get better TV rights deals. I want more stadiums to be built. I do respect his attempts to modernise. The problem is that at the moment it's all words and we're yet to really see any action. And all that's going on while just over his shoulder, the on-field product's getting worse. So
Yeah. And I
it's...
think the way you find that stability with the TV rights, with or I'm sorry, not stability, the improvement with the TV rights, with the revenue, stadium, all those things, you got to mix in some of the people that are on the inner circle already. We've kind of talked about it the last few weeks. A guy like Galliani, he walks into the legal room and everyone shuts up at attention. They listen. A guy like Scaroni and Furlani don't even show up. They say, "Who the fuck is this guy? Who's this American?" It's the I don't want to say xenophobic, but it's the outsider coming in. They say, "Well, you're not a part of this club, so you need a guy on the inside to be like, no, they're cool. They're with us. Don't worry." Like,
Yeah,
the
you're right.
whole
Yeah.
it's not what you've done, it's who you know, or whatever. It's kind of the same thing. Gerry can have all the success in America as he wants. He doesn't. But you could have all that and come in here and it won't matter unless you have somebody inside that shows that you're not here to be the grand disruptor, which he is, and that's fine, but you have to show that you're willing to cooperate and work with them. Because the bureaucracy in Italy that we know about, and obviously he wasn't privy to it when he got into it, which makes you wonder, why'd you get into it at all, is that it's not going to work that way. So you bring in a guy like Maldini, like Galliani, like any of these people who have been mainstays for years, De Laurentiis, like all these guys that are always in there, that have the league in their ear, that have the federation, that have politics, everyone. You need one of those big figures on your side. And you can't be the guy who comes in and fires Maldini, who's respected by everyone, which everyone knows I agreed with. I didn't think he was doing the best job. But if your goal is to disrupt the industry and change everything, you can't start by pissing off the industry. You got to
You
have
need an
someone on your side.
ally.
You got to
Yeah,
convince people,
100%.
and you have to have someone who could help you convince people. And it
Yeah.
doesn't have to be Maldini, but when you sack him and you bring in Rulani, no disrespect to him, I actually like the guy. No one knows who he is. Same with Moncada. Who's Moncada? No one knows who he is. Again, I like the guy. Good dude. The fuck does he know? Like
Yeah.
it's like throwing me in there. I like me. You like me. Hopefully, some of the viewers like me. Not all of them. But I walk in there, they go, "Who is this guy? Get out of here!"
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
Especially
So,
you start with that and then add in the fact that he's what not he, but the people that represent the club in these kind of circles go in there, and they're not there to be pally and buddy and all that stuff. They're there to tell them they're doing everything wrong and that they want to change it. It's not going to
And
go
they're
down
arrogant
particularly
about it
well.
too. Yeah.
Yeah, and they're like, and it's kind of, I can see how it might come across condescending to go in and be like, "Don't worry, guys, I'll help you sort out the stadiums and
Yeah.
the TV rights." I could see that being a little bit like, "Fuck off, who are you?" kind of
Especially in
thing.
this old money game where they're all 80 years old, you know? Like
Mm,
they've been doing this for a while and you want to say, "Oh, my whole life's work is wrong." Well, guess what? It's
mm.
worked for the last 40 years. What do you know? You're half my age, guy. So
Like
if you
who?
come in and you
What?
go, "Oh, I'm learning a lot. It's so fascinating here. I love the way it works." There's a few things I'd change and, if they asked me, maybe I'd give my opinion, but I like how it works and you slowly plant those seeds,
Subtlety. Yeah.
Not an
Because who
overnight
would?
thing.
How could De Laurentiis take advice from someone whose club are currently sat in eighth place? He is one of the old guard, and the one thing I will say, that might change things more generally in Cardinale's favour, in Redbird's favour, whatever, is that Syria, the ownership situations in Syria is changing quite a lot. Like half of the clubs now are foreign owned, a lot of North American investments. So maybe he'll start to find a few allies, but it's still all about the voting and
Mhm.
people stick in their factions. For example, Lotito and De Laurentiis always tend to vote together and things. So until
Yeah.
you get a seat at the table,
Yeah.
you're still
Well,
kind
and
of
that goes
fighting a
back
losing battle.
to who is showing up in that room for you, right? Like you look at the figureheads of Inter, they're owned by an American hedge fund too. Before they were was he Korean or Thai? I don't remember where he was from, but he was
Yeah,
a Eastern Asian country. I don't remember, but he wasn't Italian. Is the point?
Malaysian. Yeah,
Something like that. But
yeah.
the people they had, Beppe Morata, they had Zanetti, people who are well respected that have been in the game for decades. That they walk in the room, they command respect. Everyone knows who it is. That he's looking at two people at once. Everyone's like, "Whoa, how's he do that?" Like it's people that you know, and that helps. That helps. So it's not like, oh, these are Americans. No, these are established people in Italian soccer. It's a
Did you
difference.
see what Marotta said about Cardinale?
No,
Because
I
Cardinale said
saw that
that
he
thing.
said something. I'm like, I don't want to read it.
Yeah, he said I think Cardinale is a bit confused. And I'm just thinking, how can somebody like that call someone else confused? He's got one eye looking at you and the other eye looking to see if a bus is coming. But
So both
unfortunately,
ways across the street, he just goes like this.
he's an elite level executive.
Yeah.
Regardless of the state of his eyes. But yeah, he hit back basically and said Cardinale is confused. We said the statements were out of order and disrespectful, and he said there's only one team in the city who has 2 stars, and it's like, well, yeah, okay, that's fair enough rebuttal, but also there's only one team in the city that's won 7 Champions Leagues. Like it works both ways if you want. But I thought it was funny because that won't have got him any favors,
No.
because we know Marotta's influence. He's going to go in there to the council and be like, "You seen this guy? What he said? He lied about
Yeah.
us going bankrupt." Because technically, Sonny went bankrupt, not the club, and you can say it was the same thing, and now they're owned by a fund and blah blah blah. But anyway, yeah, it hasn't gone down well, I don't think.
When you look at
And
Morata himself, how many Scudetti has he won between Inter and Juventus? Right? He's
a
got at
lot.
least 9 with Juventus, 2 with Inter. So
Yeah, I don't know
oof,
if he was there for the entire time at
he probably
Juve, but
wasn't.
it's a
But
few. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Yeah, did you see the thing as well about apparently us looking at Paratisi to come in as the sporting director? I thought that was interesting. He was at Juve and then he got the ban. He went to
Yeah.
Spurs, got banned for being part of the Plus Valenza thing, and now he can work
Yeah.
again from the summer. I'd
Well,
probably
if
stay clear, but
I'd go for it.
he was part of a almost dynasty type thing. So
Exactly. I
it's
thought he was
just
gonna
what
do
does
good
that
work at
time of
Spurs, and I
yeah,
think he still could have had it not been for, the whole, Agnelli mafia coming to a close.
mm,
But look, this is if you want on-field success and you wanna maintain the books, who better than the guy that knows how to cook them? You know?
bit of cooking, bit of
Yeah,
let him
let
cook,
him
let
cook.
him cook, man.
Oh shit! I just broke the arm on my chair. It's all
That's
wobbly.
good. It's real. It's raw. It's authentic. Everybody, this is
Yep.
the podcast that we run. Oh wow.
Yeah.
I just wanted to end on one thing that Cardinale said. Because I presume in this that some people haven't read his full quotes, or maybe have read them but don't understand the magnitude of what was said. This is a direct quote. For the fans, my job is to win the Italian Championship every year. I get that. For my investors who are focused on bottom line appreciation, my job is to position AC Milan to challenge for the Scudetto every year, qualify for the Champions League every year, and go as far as possible in the Champions League every year. That's what maximizes cash flow and brand value. It's the consistency and lower amplitude in performance volatility that maximizes value and ultimately longevity. Now, that last bit is just jargon, but what he's basically saying is you've got to bring the floor up.
Yeah.
That floor up, yeah. So
Yeah.
basically,
Yeah.
we're not as volatile and we're just consistently in the elite places in Syria, at least, first, second, whatever.
When was the
But
last time we were relegated? Like, we're not.
yeah, the 80s.
The floor is already
But
pretty high. We're pushing it down.
yeah, we are. Yeah. But that's what happens when the old saying of like shoot for the stars and at least you land on the moon kind of thing. That is it. Shoot
Yeah.
for the Scudetto and we might underperform by 2 or 3 places, but at least we've hit
Yeah.
that minimum objective. When you set the objective as fourth or fifth place, don't be surprised when you fall under because others are going for higher than that. But
Mhm.
I thought that was an interesting quote because he basically confirms the conflict between fans and investors. He's probably got like rather than the angel and the devil on his shoulder, he's got two devils on his shoulder. One of them saying we want trophies, and I think we are right to demand sporting success. Especially when things are going on like the raising of the ticket prices and things. And then you've got the investors who are saying you got to be careful about that bottom line. We want a profit this year. And what's interesting is I don't think that the Redbird investors get paid out in dividends if the club makes a
Mm.
profit. So I don't really get the whole idea that they've. I guess
Yeah.
what he's saying is in the future the club's doing better, sell it on for a profit, everybody's happy. But he basically
Yeah.
admits that he's siding with the investors.
And that's the other problem is that there are investors. You look at a club like Napoli, it's one guy. De
Yeah.
Laurentiis owns the club. It's not, I represent a group of people who are owned by, anyone who wants to invest on the stock market because that does shift it, right? Because that board of directors will say, hey, you're not profiting. Vote of no confidence, Jerry, you're out, So I
Mm,
get why he feels he has to do that. But if the fan objective is winning the title or competing for it, and the shareholder objective is competing for Champions League, you could do both by going for the fan objective, right? Like if one objective is finishing first, the other one's finishing second, you aim for first, you might finish second. Everyone's happy. If you just say, "Look, anything extra for you is great, but that's not my goal." Like, okay, what do I have to be excited for as a fan?
hmm
Should I give up half of my weekend every weekend to watch this team that is okay with a 1-0 against Verona or a draw? Why should I make sacrifices in my measly life? I'm not an investor. I
That's the
want
thing, though.
I
I
want
was
to be
just about to say
happy.
we are investors, but in a different
Mm,
way. We are still financial investors. We buy the merchandise, and
yeah,
some people make trips. You buy season tickets, and they're inflating prices of season tickets. But also, and it sounds cringe, but we're emotional investors. And I think that without that, a football club becomes nothing. So
mhm,
you do need that because Jerry said like the first memory that he had was him coming to the Scudetto celebrations and seeing what it meant to the fans. How does that not strike a chord and make you think, I want to make them happy again? I just find the whole thing a little strange. I think the interview, yeah, it was always going to cause fallout regardless of when it came out, but I think you couldn't handpick a worse time for it to come out. I say the interview again for clarity. It's a 24-page study from Harvard Business School, which was conducted by by Giorgio Furlani's old lecturer. So she kind of got the inside track on it all. Spoke to literally everybody.
mhm.
There was also like the chief financial officer said something along the lines of our fans expect to win the Scudetto every year, but we're not in a position to immediately challenge for it. It's like your head coach is saying something different.
Well,
It
it's
was
you
all
won it
very
the year
messy.
before you took over. Like you said, you were there
Yeah.
for the celebration. You are in a position. A worse team won it. You can't tell
Mm.
me our On-field performances have gotten worse, but our players have gotten better. That's the
Mm.
thing. We don't have
Yeah, the
Macias
squad is.
on the wing. Like the squad
Yeah,
is
yeah.
objectively better. And I guess another thing to take into consideration is that this was meant for a business class to talk to business students in college to learn about business, about creating shareholder value. So maybe it was embellished on that front because of the platform, but it's still not good, you know?
No.
Y-
Yeah, you're right.
You
You're
sh-
right.
yeah.
It's difficult as well because somebody pointed out in our comments section, and there was also another columnist who pointed it out in an article in a piece that they did on it. And it's all about perspectives, and I hadn't seen it from this perspective when I read it the first time. The first guy said he's speaking to Harvard Business School. Of course, he's
Mhm.
going to speak about the business specifics of AC Milan. Fair enough, he is, yeah. Um, and then the second point of view was that he wasn't speaking to fans, he was speaking to potential investors. He would use an interview like that to put the word out there that, like, this
Mhm.
is a big investment opportunity, especially
Yeah.
what's happened with the refinancing of the loan. Is he saying, come join us kind of thing? Which is just something to throw out there, whether you agree with it or not. We're in with a couple of questions. Is that okay?
Yeah, of course. I have nothing to do.
Right, let's go into the Discord channel. They get the priority, of course. Oh, wow, we got quite a few.
Yeah, I'm sure that
Um,
interview.
Yeah, I'm looking back to the. All right, if you had to, this is from Shoobs. If you had to pick a banter era player to pluck out of their time, I presume he means prime, and drop into this current team, who would it be? Oh, I've got an answer for this.
Yeah, me too. Why always me?
Oh, and Balotelli.
Mario Balotelli.
Yeah,
Of
mine was
course.
going to be
Throw him
Carlos
in there.
Bacca
Prime
for.
Balo. Okay, yeah, actually
Yeah,
Baca's a better striker.
same
But
reason though. Same
yeah.
reason though. Maybe Kuchka because like he was really
Mm,
good for 1 or 2 seasons, and we could use a combative DM like him. Um, I'd rather have Sousa than Chukwueze as well. As much
yeah.
as people hated him, he had some moments, man. So there's a few that
Macias
would
has
probably
far better
start now.
stats than Chukwueze.
Yeah, I saw that graphic. Did you? It was. Oh yeah,
Yeah, it
Lorenzo
was
put it
like
in the chat. I was like, what? That can't be real numbers. But
let me
yeah,
pull it up because that was
yeah.
insanity. Give me 1 second here, fellers.
Mm-hmm.
It was God, this chat just there's too much
Yeah,
messaging
there
in
is a
this.
lot going on.
So
Um,
68 games for Macias to 54 for Chukwueze, 6 goals for Chukwueze, 12 for Macias, 4 assists for Chukwueze, 5 for Macias, 308 minutes per goal for Macias, 390 minutes per goal for Chukwueze.
so I think they're comparably bad, but like the whole point was that when you spend 20 plus million, you think you're getting an upgrade. That would be fair, right?
At least an
Um,
upgrade on a guy who delivered refrigerators, right? Like,
yeah. Oh, bless him. Yeah. He's at Genoa now, isn't he? He didn't play against us
yeah.
because he was injured, which
Neither
was a
did
shame.
Balotelli.
Yeah, yeah. Um, we got a really long question from Sicilian King, but I think I'm going to keep that one because it's good bonus material. And Arianto Nugroho asks, would you sell Teo, or do you think he just needs a break and will turn things around?
Well, I saw the report today that he came in on the day off yesterday and did a specialized training session with Fonseca's staff. So
Mm,
it seems the tough love bit, we know it worked on Liao. Maybe it's working on Teo as well. I mean, I do think he did well when he came on against Verona. Granted, it was Verona.
mm.
But yeah, I think I'd give him a bit more time, at least towards the end of the season. If things don't turn around, if we miss Champions League, we're going to have to sell, and he would be the guy. If we can hold him again, I would like to, especially if he finds that form.
I think that's the question. If we miss Champions League and we have to make a sale in order to, let's say, fund a bit of a revamping of the squad, or maybe we need one to balance books or whatever. Is he the guy? And I think
Hmm.
people are more and more warming to the idea that, yeah, he probably is. But I think that perspective might change if he were to renew. And his agent came out and said that he's happy and that he wants to renew. And that was after he got benched for the Genoa game. So I think that we're seeing a different side to Teo, at least through his actions and through words like that, whereby he's actually not sulking in the way that people maybe thought. And him and Liao, because Liao's kind of had the same treatment and come out the other side of it, have shown a lot more maturity in handling this than I thought that they would.
Yeah.
you know.
Same.
And look, we know with Teo it's a bit of a different dynamic because there's some difficult off-field stuff that we won't mention, but we presume people are aware of. Then you've got the contract thing, which is also off-field stuff. Then you've got the fact that his performances haven't been good, whereas Leao has at least picked up in terms of his form. So those three things should be like 3 strikes, you're out. But instead, he's like, no, I'm gonna show that I care. I'm gonna come to training on a day off. I'm gonna get myself in the best possible shape. I'm gonna try get into the starting lineup against Roma and go from there. And speaking of that Roma game, I wouldn't mind seeing Teo left back and Jimenez as a winger if we're up shit creek without anybody to start. But
Might be what we have to do.
I think it's heading that way. Yeah, we'll leave it there then. Thank you for tuning in, everybody, because I presume if you're tuning into this, you're doing so on Christmas Eve, which shows immense dedication given the misery that Milan have caused us this season. But as said at the start of the episode, have a fantastic festive period, everyone. We'll be back with a Roma recap between Christmas and New Year, I presume. But you can check updates on Twitter for when we're recording. We'll have another bonus out as well. We pre-recorded one, so that's going to be going out as New Year's resolutions, so you can look forward to that. And yeah, have a fantastic time, everyone. I've been your host, Ollie Fisher. Find me on Twitter at Ollie Fisher. AJ, cheers for joining.
See you guys in a week.
Gol! Ancora Teo! È una meraviglia! Il gol di Teo Hernandez da un'area all'altra! È una meraviglia! Senti il mio cuore!